good. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
As clerk of the full committee, I'm happy to.
I got you. That was easy because I didn't want to force somebody to do it. Well, we'll let Jen do it. That would be great.
Whatever people prefer. That clerk does an amazing job, but it's also a lot of work. So up to you.
Well, we figured you had your hands full with the full one, so maybe we'll give it to Jen and she'll give a good shot.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you, Jen. Appreciate it. All right, so I just want to welcome everybody on the committee. It's our first meeting. I really appreciate everybody taking the time, and you know we have a lot of work to get through over the next year. So I hope everybody's prepared to dig in, and we're all going to work hard to reach our goal. So I want to thank everybody. I also want, folks that have been on the regular building committee and had been helping out have done a really good hard work for us and built a good foundation. So I just want to recognize that because there have been a lot of people that have put a lot of hours and hard work into this process, both with the permanent and the temporary fire station. So I want to thank everybody for that effort and also look forward to working with everybody to accomplish our goal here. So thank you, everybody that has contributed. I appreciate that. I wanted to, I have asked Chief Strand to talk a little bit about the temporary fire station and educate us on many things. And he was more than gracious to talk about that. So Bob, do you want to take over and talk about the temporary station?
Sure. I put together, actually one of my captains put together a PowerPoint presentation that I'll just really quick piece through. And thank you for turning it over to me and asking me to talk about the firehouse is, happy to do it anytime. So I'll see if I can get this up on the screen so everybody can see it. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
It's awfully small.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's small. Let me see.
On my screen is.
Let me see if I can change
Wow.
this.
Same.
I don't know if I can change this. Give me 1 second.
A little square one.
I thought this one was.
Well, no, that was for me because they're actually soft. I wanted you to have what you want.
If you on your far left, everyone on the far left of your screen, there is a several symbols in a row, and there's a increase the size symbol. So if you do that, then you can get it to a size that you can read and see.
Give me 1 second. I apologize. This is this technology is.
It's your monitor.
Yeah.
Switch to your other monitor. It should change the view.
Yeah.
But I can't minimize it. Give me 1 second.
Whoa.
Go from fire trucks to tanks.
Very
Nice
aggressive
tank.
change, Chief.
Yeah.
German tank.
I got a driver for
You
you.
know what?
We're not gonna
Can
house
you
your tank.
go on to something else real quick and then come back to me so I had this all set up and I don't know where it went. So I need a minute. So I'm going to stop sharing.
David, you want to do a roll call?
That would be great.
Yes. I haven't done that before, so I'm just looking at the list here for a sec.
Oh, did that.
Nope. Just in case. You mute your video.
Oh. Hold on a sec. My screen is. Oh, technical problems. My screen's flickering a million miles an hour again.
Well, you want me to do it?
Yeah. Let me,
Okay.
I don't know. You can still hear me, right? Because I can't see. Yeah, go ahead.
Herb Forgy. Okay.
Here.
Gene Wall.
All right, I'm back. Yep. Got you.
Here. Jennifer Stromston.
Here.
Peter McIver.
Hey.
Roxanne Weegartner is here. I think I have everyone on the committee, subcommittee, fire station, temporary fire station subcommittee. Also in
back.
attendance are Neil Joyce, our OPM, Katrina Pacheco from Pacheco Ross. And there may have been one or two others.
Neil is on. Neil?
I am here.
Yeah.
I'm back. I think I'm back, and it looks like the chief is back too. You back with us, Bob? Technical
Yeah.
issues.
I don't know what happened to the chief. His thing is up there, but
Okay. Well, we could wait. We can move on until we can hear him. Are you back on, Chief?
I'm here. Just trying to get this to get on the right screen here.
You just had it up on the screen before you came back on.
I apologize. I had this all set, ready to go earlier.
that's looking good.
Okay, give me 1 second here.
We can see your monitor fine.
There you go.
Okay, I think I should have it right about now. I'm hoping.
There you go.
All right, I'm just going to leave it at this. It's still in the edit mode, but I think you can all see it now, right?
Yep.
Okay, good. I apologize wholeheartedly for this. I had this taken care of earlier, and I'm not sure what caused the problem with it, but we will keep going forward. So just a real down and dirty presentation on the fire station. And so the biggest thing that I think people need to know is that this is not a garage. Right? Yes, it is a place that houses fire apparatus, but it is not simple as being a garage. Our fire apparatus floor is part of the main component of the firehouse that can either enhance or hinder emergency response and operations, and just gives you a little overview of some of the stuff that we do on a daily basis here at the fire station. It's also a site of many key department functions, such as maintenance of equipment. As you can see, can you see my arrow as I present here?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, good. Tours for kids, retirement issues, checking of equipment, keeping the equipment washed, maintenance of the equipment, maintenance of tools, and training of our firefighters. We also house many different systems within the apparatus bay. Size of the apparatus always comes into play. The size of the ladder truck has to be taken into consideration. We have vehicle exhaust. If you look at this system right here in the pictures, We have a removal for the vehicle exhaust. This hose takes the carcinogen materials out of the diesel exhaust. It goes up through a pipe, and this fan pumps it outside. And so that limits the amount of diesel exhaust within the building. Heating and cooling is always a major concern. Our fire apparatus have water in them. We also have medications aboard for our medical equipment. So we have to have it heated. It can't be left outside. You can't put it behind a gate someplace and leave it outside. It's got to be someplace heated. It's got to be insulated and ventilated appropriate. Right now, heat and hot water is our primary source of heating, where we use 3 oil tanks to provide fuel, but obviously that will be something different in a temporary facility. Off the apparatus floor, we need water for cleaning and decontamination of equipment and the firefighters themselves. Right now, we have a slop sink that does that. We also have medical hazard decon, which you need water for to be able to spray down the equipment to clean it and the apparatus when it gets back, especially now in the day of COVID. We also need high volume water refilling for our apparatus. This right here is, you see the hose underneath, is hooked up to this to quickly fill the water tanks when it comes back from a fire. Every fire we go to, we don't necessarily use a hydrant. So if we go to, say, a car fire or a dumpster fire, we come back to the firehouse to fill up. Right now, that's currently in our apparatus bay. The cleaning of our apparatus bay after a fire and also cleaning our apparatus all the time is very critical. You'll see the garden hose here. That's one of a few garden hoses that we use to clean our apparatus. We also need to spray down our equipment when it gets dirty and contaminated. We also use water to refill our water extinguishers off of these garden hoses. Our current facility has one of the things that you have to keep in mind is that we are going to be on a pavement. Right now, we have drains that take care of all the water from the washing of the apparatus and the equipment, and it goes to the drains. When we go to a new facility, a temporary facility, we probably won't have that. The winter time, that could be a serious consideration. So it's something that needs to be considered. Also, by having it drain, the water drain, it prevents a fall hazard. We have support that we need to maintain someplace near the apparatus bay or within temporary housing, and what you're looking at here is our primary method to decon our clothing, including our turnout gear. To the right here is a gear extractor, which this cleans our turnout gear, and this is a washer, just a regular washer dryer that we use to clean soiled uniforms. This is also a smaller gear extractor. Lighting is important on the apparatus floor. This round item to the left of the screen is our station notification. This is how we get notified through dispatch. Dispatch announces the call, and that's how we hear it. And so some method of notifying the firefighters on the apparatus floor is going to be key. Our alarm system goes through that, and our public address system goes through that. Every truck has a shoreline that we hook into to get power. When the apparatus are not in use, there are several pieces of equipment, such as things that are battery powered or battery operated that needs to be on chargers. There is also other equipment such as flashlights and things of that nature that get charged when the truck is not running, and it gets charged by plugging into an electrical line called a shoreline. That is done through these drops throughout the apparatus floor and plugged right into each of the fire trucks. So that is another consideration that needs to be taken into effect when you move into a temporary facility. This is our exhaust removal system. We put this in there because it's pretty high voltage system that captures the exhaust and pushes it out the building. Even in a temporary facility, there has to be attention placed on removal of the harmful exhaust from the trucks. This is our SCBA, or our self-contained breathing apparatus filling station. This is where, when we use our air packs, when we use the air out of them, we have to fill them with clean air. And this is the machine that does it. It is a two-part machine. This is the part that's upstairs that actually fills the bottle, and the compressor for this is downstairs. We also have a separate compressed air line within the apparatus floor. This is for using of tools, filling tires, filling water cans, water extinguishers, blowing off some tools that may be dirty, and other things like that. It is also used, this other line right here is the air to the trucks. All our major trucks have air brakes. Fire trucks need to be able to respond at a moment's notice. We are able to respond very quickly because we don't have to wait for the air in the trucks to build up when they're plugged into a shoreline. And so all our trucks have the drop, same picture, but the yellow line is air drop that goes to the apparatus. You see the electrical line right next to it, and they get plugged into the trucks. Most of the trucks have what we call auto ejects. And as soon as we put the truck in gear, it automatically takes the electrical line and automatically takes the air line and discharges it and pushes it away from the truck. It is hung from the ceiling because it does not, we don't want it to lay around on the ground to get damaged. We also don't want to get it caught up in the trucks when the trucks are pulling out on an emergency call. The compressed air also controls our vehicle exhaust system. This line right here goes to a boot that inflates. It goes around the exhaust when we plug it in. This is our air compressor. You'll notice that this air compressor is an older air compressor. This is when a school was upgraded, they were able to get a new air compressor. We were able to upgrade our air compressor with what was from the school. So this was a big upgrade for us. This is the other part of that self-contained breathing apparatus compressor. This is a separate compressor. This compressor is just regular air compressed. This compressor compresses air but cleans as well. And so there's filters and we get it certified twice a year to make sure that the air going into our air tanks is not contaminated, and that it's clean, and that it's safe for our firefighters to use. This is storage in a workplace. We do constant maintenance on our apparatus. Our major maintenance is done at the fire station or at the public works department. But our minor repairs, changing light bulbs, putting chains on the truck. If you look here, there's chainsaws being worked on there, our small tools. Every day, the firefighters are maintaining the equipment, sharpening saws. They need an area to be able to do that. This is our small room that we have of our apparatus for to do that. In a temporary facility, you still have to have the ability to keep on top of the maintenance of the trucks. This is a toolbox, a mobile, a portable toolbox that we take to do our own in-house repairs. We wheel it to where that we need to go to. We also have staging that you'll notice that a lot of our trucks are high. And if we had to do work on some lights, we had to do some cleaning up top or whatever, there's portable staging that goes along with it. This picture is hard to see, but this is looking down in a hose tower. So down at the bottom here is a little contraption that the hose goes in, the water gets turned on, it's put down and dragged back up and hung in the hose tower to wash the hose. At a temporary facility, we obviously are not going to have a hose drying tower, so we're still going to need the ability to wash the hose to get the contaminant. This is another picture of it. and a third picture to show how we hang it up in the tower. At a temporary facility, we're not going to have this ability. And so we're going to have to figure out some type of hose drying rack where we can lay out the hose in a heated area with good ventilation to make sure that the hose is dried so we can get the hose put back into service and put back on the trucks. This is another room that is down in our basement. This is our SCBA, the self-contained breathing apparatus, our test and repair room. It's a clean environment for them to work on our SCBAs. You'll see that it's secured. It's also our this is our communications office that is our storage of a lot of our radio and communication equipment. This was just put in to show that this is one facility that is used regularly, that in a temporary facility is probably going to be difficult for us to come up with a space for them to exercise. So we will be working on alternatives for that. In the basement, we have, sorry, somebody have a question? In our basement, we have several smaller pieces of apparatus, our brush truck, our utility truck, our boat, our all-terrain rescue vehicle, and some of the command cars are kept down in the basement. And so it's not just the main apparatus floor up top full of equipment, it's also the equipment down below. Our personal protective equipment is lined throughout the firehouse on the apparatus floor. This allows rapid access to get dressed quickly. They're open air lockers for ventilation, and they're not exposed to UV light. I want to highlight this picture to show you that this drop here for this apparatus that's here, the reason why that's so crucial right here is because if this wasn't here and there was no mechanism for the exhaust to get captured, that exhaust would blow diesel exhaust all over this turnout gear, contaminating this turnout gear every time that truck went out. This is just another area within our apparatus, right off the apparatus floor, that shows the more storage. Every member has 2 sets of turnout gear. If I go back to here, you'll notice that there's not enough room to store 2 sets of turnout gear in their primary locker. So their second set of turnout gear is housed in shelving down in the basement. You'll notice that each one of these are marked with a number. That's an individual firefighter. So such as this number right here is 84. That's Lieutenant Seaman's locker, his spare set of turnout gear. We keep it in containers like this, in storage like this, because it preserves the gear. It doesn't expose it to mold and it doesn't get mildewy, and it's kept relatively good condition. When a firefighter goes to a fire, his gear gets contaminated and needs to be washed. He still needs, or she still needs to be in service. And in order to do that, they have to have a second set of turnout gear. We have storage all around our apparatus floor. You'll see that we have firefighting foam here on the wall, coolers for the summertime to put water in the trucks, our washing appliances, our brushes to wash the gear. Back here is a refrigerator. The refrigerator houses bottled water for firefighters on scenes of emergencies. And then there's regular drinking water that's on the floor. And this is our storage right now that we have in the firehouse. But I felt important to highlight this so you understand that the tight space that we have now for storage is going to be even tighter in a temporary facility. Our Speedy Dry, this is 1/10 of the stock we usually keep on hand. Behind it is a pallet of water. Again, most of the water has been exhausted. The pallet is usually much bigger than this, but it's stored right on the apparatus floor. When we go to an oil spill, the folks will get back, they'll grab a bag, they'll replenish the fire apparatus. Or if we have a major spill, they'll load up the rescue truck with 10 bags and go and use whatever they need. Vehicle parts. Right here is our chain compartment. These house all the chains for the winter time when we have to chain up the fire apparatus. And our flammable liquid storage is right here. Firefighting hose, once the hose is washed and dried, it goes on the hose rack. If we had a fire right now, a typical house fire, 3/4, if not most of this hose would be taken off, replace the hose that was off the truck that was used. The hose that was used on the truck would be washed, hung for 3 days minimum, rolled back up, and then put into this position to replace the next time the hose has to be taken off and re-put on the truck. We can't put hose right off of a fire right back on the truck. It needs to be cleaned, it needs to be decontaminated, and it also needs to be hung and dried appropriate. If you don't, you'll end up getting mildew and you'll end up rotting the hose from the inside out. Along this wall right here is all our medical supplies. Medical supplies are a big part of our job now. And this whole wall is nothing but medical supply cabinets and lockers. So that stuff needs to find a home as well. And again, I just want to highlight how much stuff is actually on these apparatus floors. More medical supply storage. Our new building, there'll be a whole room dedicated for this, which is required by NFPA and OEMS as well. But right now, it's right on the apparatus floor in locked cabinets. We'll have storage of our pressure washer and our snow removal equipment for the apparatus floor. DPW does a great job of keeping our bays clean, but there's only so much that you can do with a plow, and the sidewalks and the front of the apparatus get snow blowed every couple hours during a snowstorm. We also have a new plow that we put in service to help us keep the driveway clear. Recycling and trash is on our apparatus floor. Our emergency water equipment. This is if there's a flooded basement or a broken sprinkler pipe. We come in and one of the services that we do is we try to keep the damage to a minimum. And we do that by getting the water out quick. And this is the equipment that we have to do that. This is our hazmat storage down in the basement. This is to handle anything from small spills to larger spills to spills in waterways, spills from tractor trailers, protective equipment suits. This is our state-of-the-art gear drying system. There are planks and boards that are hung up on the ceiling, and if you see back here, the gear gets thrown over it, and that's how we dry our gear. But I highlight that because after we clean the gear has to be hung and dried so it can be put back into service for the members in a relatively quick time. We have training props down in our basement, and this prop, if you imagine that getting put down on its side, this right here is a little door that lifts up. We put a firefighter with a pack on. We black out his mask, and then we close this and throw all these wires on top of them and tell them to get out. It's one of the many props that we have to try to train our firefighters to get out of very dangerous situations. Here's another prop. This is to go through how to get out of a basement window and how to breach a wall. We teach guys to cut this out and fit through the little space if they had to get out of a room that they have no door to get out of. This is loose equipment down in the basement. This is tents portable tents. These are air lines for our confined space. It's all put in corners like this, and if needed, it's loaded up on a pickup truck and brought to wherever it needs to go. Really near and dear to my heart is these two pieces of equipment. This is one of the pieces of equipment, and over here is a hose cart. This is an original 1852 hand pump that was purchased for the city of Greenfield. And it was purchased in 1852 and has been lovingly cared for as best as we can. Since it's been in service in 1852, and it still pumps. This is a little radio closet where you'll see batteries, flashlights, everything that needs charging that's not on the apparatus for is in this little closet. And this is one of our proudest things that we do is we love when the children of the community can come into the local firehouse. This is pre-COVID, obviously. Can come into the local firehouse and we can show them around the firehouse. And so as we end the presentation to these young folks, when we do it, I'll ask the same question. Is there any questions? I knew I went super fast, but are there any questions?
I have a few, Chief.
Okay.
Can you talk about the places where the firefighters reside? You know, obviously a little bit about the space they need for resting and night, and also where do you have your meetings? What do you do for your meetings? Space is tight there, so we, you know, talk a little bit about those two things. You know, the everyday living and the meetings that you have.
So I didn't highlight the living quarters because I believe that our architect and our project manager have a good handle on what is going to be needed for space. Our meeting room right now can hold about a little over 50 people. It also is our common room, which is where the firefighters gather. And so that is probably not going to be in a temporary. So the short answer is that we're not going to have real meeting space in a temporary facility. But the sleeping quarters, the kitchen, and things like that, that's the second floor of the fire station. And I didn't really get into that because I have no doubt that that will be appropriate for what the firefighters need. I don't know what the square footage of that is. The project manager or the architect could probably answer that further down the road. What I really wanted to highlight is the concern that I had that there seems to be this opinion that the fire station apparatus floor is a garage. And the point of this whole PowerPoint presentation was to highlight to everybody that it is a lot more complicated. It's a lot more complication than just saying that it's a garage. There are systems within it that need to be maintained, whether you're in a permanent fire station or whether you're in a temporary fire station. The reality is for us is that if we go on a fire, our trucks get dirty, our equipment gets dirty, our firefighters get dirty, and the stuff that they get dirty on, especially at a structure fire, is dangerous to the firefighters. So the most important thing that we do when we come back from any type of a dangerous environment like that is to make sure that we aggressively and quickly decontaminate our firefighters. So, for example, the first two firefighters on a scene of a fire that go into a building fire, the first thing that they do before they get the trucks back together is that they go upstairs and they shower and decon. Because we need to get those contaminants off our firefighters as quick as possible. And we need to get them out of the dirty gear. We need to get them out of the dirty uniforms that they're wearing. And we need to get them scrubbed down and cleaned. And that's the first priority. And so that's why we call in mutual aid often. And our mutual aid will cover why we do it as quick as possible. We don't linger. We don't take our time doing it, but we get our stuff cleaned up. We get it repacked. We get the trucks put back together, and then we're ready for the next call.
Okay. Thank you.
I know Herb Forgy will tell you stories that, you know, the first priority was always get the trucks back together when you got back to the firehouse, and guys would be in soot and dirt and everything on them as they repacked everything for hours. And the new studies that we've shown, you know, there's ways we can prevent cancer causing agents to get on our firefighters. The first one is decontaminating equipment, and that goes true for medical calls too. Remember, they're getting exposed to a lot of bad stuff, especially now. And so they need to be able to decon themselves after medical calls. But the other thing is the vehicle exhaust system, capturing the vehicle exhaust going out of the firehouse. Do I think that the temporary facility will have, like we have right now, where it goes right over the tail? Probably not. It'll probably be a different NFPA approved where there's pressure and it sucks it out quick. And but those are things that are vital to keep our firefighters safe, and that have to be maintained regardless of where we go. And so I said it twice, and I'm going to say it a third time. You know, this is not a simple garage. It is, you know, it's.
Thank you. I didn't think it was a simple garage, but I'm glad you went through this list for us and made it very clear that it's quite complex and quite involved. So thank you, Chief, for all the details. I appreciate it.
Could I add something to what the chief says? In this day and age, it's imperative that the firefighters not bring home many of the things that they deal with on a regular basis at work. Back in the day, you brought all your stuff home, you washed it in your own laundry, and what you did in fact do was expose the rest of your family to all the contaminants that you were been dealing with through the entire day. The idea that this has changed the way that it has in the last 20 years is fantastic, and it's something that we definitely have to make sure we maintain the temporary housing for these guys.
So Herb makes a good point, and I'll highlight that. Firefighters are not allowed to go home in their duty uniforms. They're required to take them off and launder them here at the firehouse. That was a decision that we made a while ago. It has been reaffirmed with COVID. You know, my firefighters have transported many sick patients, and so we've learned a lot about COVID since it first began. But we require them to launder here. The other thing we do is you know, they have their duty boots are down on the apparatus floor. We don't allow duty boots in the living room. So just to try to keep, we go above and beyond, and it's necessary to try to keep any contaminants out of the living quarters. That's why when the SCBA work here, the hose drying, all that stuff needs to be in the vicinity of the apparatus floor and not in the living quarters or by the living quarters.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody else on the committee have any questions for the chief?
I do. Is there a company that rents facilities like this that are all set up so that you can just put it down, or do we have to build it from scratch for?
Are you talking the structure itself or the systems within the structure?
Both.
So yes, there are companies that, and if any of the professionals want to jump in here, but there are companies that yes, will come in and they will actually build the apparatus bay with the idea that there are vehicles parked in there, certain precautions are taken into effect then. As far as the other systems, the short answer is yes. I believe that anything can be done with portable units.
Yeah. Gene, this is Dennis. In answer to your question, there's a couple of companies out there that make temporary structures specifically for fire apparatus. Well, they'll have overhead doors, man doors, exhaust fans, lighting, insulation, and things like that. What they will not have that is expected to bring to the systems, the SCBA system, the extractor, you know, gear itself, the lockers, things like that, they would expect you to bring and populate the building with.
Do we have any idea of what it will cost to get such a thing set up wherever we're putting the temporary station? I mean, I think that's a crucial part of the presentation.
Yes, and Neil has been working on those numbers with us, and we've talked to a few companies just so we can hone in on the numbers. Right now, it's not an exact science because we don't have the exact number of bays, the depth, and how we're going to use it. But his spreadsheet that he's going to present later on does show what the temporary facility costs will be. Anticipate will be.
So Gene, just to sort of dot the I and cross the T, right now we've set aside a budget of $1.7 million. That's based on a lot of variables, some of which are well defined, some of which are not yet well defined. And that will be the process that we're going through over the next 90 to 120 days, is making sure that that's the right number, or hopefully a lesser number for the temporary station.
Looks like Roxanne has a question, Mayor.
Yeah, I do, if Jean is finished. Yeah, okay. Chief, the items that you listed on your slide that are stored down cellar, so quite a few things. How many of those need to come along with you to the temporary site? And how many, if any, could be stored within other sites owned by the city of Greenfield?
So that's a great question, Mayor. So our artifacts that we have, and we have quite a few within the fire station, I think could be stored definitely off-site someplace in a protected, temperature-controlled building. Some of the stuff can be stored probably on-site, but maybe in a Connex trailer. So like the hazmat supplies and some of the things like that we need access to. A Connex trailer, I think, would be fine with shelving. The reality is that we just started digging into that to find out what is going to need to come with us into the temporary facility, and what we can put into storage, if you will, someplace else.
I think just to complement that, Chief, we'll go through an exercise, and it'll be a lengthy exercise with Pacheco Ross, and we will basically program the temporary facility much in the same way that we will program the permanent building. And we'll ask very challenging questions: what you can be with, what you can be without. The one thing I really want to understand or make clear to the subcommittee is that we don't want to spend a nickel more than we have to on the temporary facility, because it doesn't benefit us in the long run for the permanent station. Every dollar we spend is one that we cannot spend on the permanent station. And that's really our end goal, is to provide you with all of the essential and elementary systems that you need in a temporary facility to operate it, bearing in mind that this is not 3 months and done. We're going to be there for the better part of 2 years, and we have to make sure that the station will perform and operate much in the same way that the existing station does, while spending as little as possible to make it all happen.
It's a huge challenge. And that's why, I'm very excited that all you folks decided that you wanted to get on the subcommittee, because we haven't had no
Does anybody else have any other questions that are on the committee? I have one question. Is there things that you can think of? We don't need to go through the list now. I guess it could be a yes and no, but are there things or systems that we could temporarily reuse in the temporary fire station that are in the old fire station that might not necessarily go to the new fire station, but there can be some cost savings? I mean, I don't mean trucks. I mean like systems, air compressors, that type of thing. Is that a thought? Is there temporary stuff that
yeah, I think so. Obviously it's going to have to be looked at very closely.
Yeah.
And I'm shooting from the hip here, but yeah, I believe some of it can be reused. The compressor, the Scott filling station could move to the temporary. I believe that that's possible.
Yeah, I mean,
When it comes
it's
to
a timing challenge. It's a timing challenge.
Yeah, so I also have to keep in mind that like the air filling station is not a simple pick it up and move and hook it up. You have to have the company come in and they have to recertify it, and there's a lot that goes with it. But the short answer is yes, I believe a lot of those type SCBA filling station could be transferred unless the architect or Neil think differently.
Yeah. Okay.
That's part of the due diligence that we're going to do in this programming is to figure that out. And like Neil says, save every penny possible doing it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Chief, for that in-depth information. Neil, is there anything that you feel like you need to add?
Dave, the only thing I really had prepared was just a general timeline in terms of the next steps. Obviously, the first choice or the most immediate need for this subcommittee, as well as the permanent committee, is to agree on a site. Once we agree on a site and a location, we will be going through, again, the programming exercise with Pacheco Ross and the fire department. We anticipate that will be a relatively quick process, but we still anticipate roughly 6 to 8 weeks of what I'll call programming and design time to lay everything out so that we're ready to go to bid during the winter. Ideal situation, we hit the ground running with the change in between winter and spring, and we're building through the spring and into the early part of the summer, relocating through the summer, and then turning over the existing fire station in the fall of next year. Again, all of those dates are very broad. They're very broad for a reason, and we will refine those and continue our due diligence to make this happen as quickly as possible. We understand that that's a very high need for the city.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, the schedule that you put out on the last meeting was pretty broad. I mean, it had, month gaps for items. So I think once a location for the temporary is picked, then we can move forward and really set some good dates, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the agenda was put together pretty quickly. We didn't have an item on there to talk about the temporary location that was looked at, but I think we could talk about it as an item for the meeting. I would like to discuss it.
Okay,
So
you're the chair.
So so the last meeting that we had, building committee meeting, a group of folks had looked at the Hope Street location, and it looked like I think according to the mayor that it was a viable piece of property that could be utilized. I'm not one that wants to reinvent the wheel here. I think picking a location is challenging. So if the chief had taken a look at it, I'd like to get some input on that and open the floor up to talk about that location, because I think picking a location is pretty critical to our timeline.
I agree. I will tell you that there has been some other suggestions that have been made, and I'll quickly highlight a couple other sites that have been brought to my attention. One of them is the parking area behind Wilson's, the public parking lot behind Wilson's. Obviously, everything could be looked at closely, but that could be a very big challenge from a response standpoint for us. Making some major cuts within the curb cuts of the parking area, and Chapman Street to get to Main Street is just way too narrow for a daily, multiple times a day response. If you go and you sit at the outlet store and you watch the traffic, people have to kind of let people go by, especially trucks. add snow onto the streets, and it's basically one way. And so if that was to be viable, we would have to make Chapman Street one way, in my opinion. I would leave that to transportation people to come up with this, but in my opinion, it would have to be one way going out to Main Street. To do that, you would have to remove considerable parking along Chapman Street. And I don't think the business owners in that neighborhood would really appreciate the elimination of a tremendous amount of parking besides the parking lot. So that could be a challenge. Another location that was suggested was the field behind the middle school and on North Street. I'll just remind everybody that we are trying to save every dime. And although you can put a temporary facility on an open field, you're going to have to pave it, and it's going to come out of cost. So, and if you can pick a parking lot that's already there, that already has a hard top, you save the cost of having to pave an apron and a place for the bay. We did take a preliminary look at the spacing of that to see if it would house a fire station. And the answer that they came up with the drawings is yes, you can, but you will lose the ball field. So it's either going to be a ball field or it's going to be a fire station. It's not going to, there's not enough room to do both. So I think that poses some challenges. So then goes back to the one that the mayor says, and she's absolutely right when she says that. It was right under our noses the whole time. I had discredited it because of the hill that it discharges on Prospect Street. But after taking the apparatus down, I took our biggest piece of equipment and I took our engines. And knowing that we would be using both levels, the lower levels of that, it's tight and it is challenging, but it is manageable. The key to us is going to be keeping that hill nice and clean and sanded, but it's not as bad as I originally thought it was. And I think it's a very viable option. And according to Dennis, the designer, he has showed that it can fit. It would still be the goal that if we can retain some parking there for the businesses there, that we absolutely should strive to do that and make it feasible to keep some of the parking there. We know it's going to come out of hardship to some of the folks that have permit parking, but want to remind everybody that that was the main reason why the parking garage was built, to try to accommodate some of the parking in that area. And remember, it is a temporary facility. It is not the permanent facility.
Okay, thank you for that. I'd like to open it up for discussion. The members, see if they have any questions or comments on either of the locations and the Hope Street location.
I wonder if it's not time to just hop on a solution and say that we make a motion to make it the Hope Street, the temporary location, because people in this city are going to come up with a million more places that we will have to go look at, and we don't have time anymore.
Roxanne, are you waving your hands?
I am. I don't know where I went. Here we go.
You looked like
all
you
I was
were
going to
kind
say,
of doing it, but you kind of weren't.
all I was going to say regarding what Jean just said is that I agree with her on that, of course, but it would be a recommendation from the subcommittee to the full committee.
Yeah.
Not a definitive vote on that.
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
We would make a positive recommendation on it. Right. Absolutely. But I do want to give other folks, members, a chance to speak on it. But I do agree with Jean that time is of essence. And, we could go through, looking at 10 more sites. But the fact is that every site we look at is costing the town and the project money, because we have to do a drawing and we have to do an investigation. So we want to keep that in mind. So I'd like to hear from the other committee members before we maybe discuss maybe making a motion and voting on a recommendation.
I'll just jump in and I'll just say I wholeheartedly agree with Jean that I think, and I feel comfortable with this site. I think it, ticks as many boxes as something is going to tick. And there's also just that this neighborhood, has somehow survived the apocalypse of the courthouse building, where parking was disrupted and blah, blah, blah. We all made it. And so I think the kind of disruption that this would engender is something we're familiar with. It wasn't such a big deal. And I think as long as the city continues to be responsive and just in communication with folks at the courthouse, with the businesses, about any necessary parking accommodations, which is what happened in the past, I think it's going to work out great. So.
I can add to that, David, and I have forgotten to mention this, sorry. The city has already started working on how to accommodate the people who hold permits in both of those and how to make up for the revenue in that. And also, we will be certainly reaching out to the businesses that are right there on Hope Street, just to certainly let them know and let them know and the courthouse willing, because many of the permit holders are courthouse employees, that we will be working with them as much as possible. As Chief said, we're trying to leave a few parking spaces. I don't know the exact number right now, and I don't know that we will, for the public to park. But we won't know that number, I don't think, till they get a little closer to what we're going to need for apparatus space.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Does anybody else on the committee have any questions or comments or want to discuss the Hope Street lot?
Looks like Peter.
David, I got a couple questions.
Go ahead. Sorry, I'm scrolling through the folks and looking at the hands being raised. Go ahead. Sorry.
It's quite all right. Could the mayor, or maybe I see Dennis Ross is stepping out, but if I can catch him before he left.
Nope, I came back. I had a proposal due. I just had to make sure it got out the door.
Perfect time. Can someone speak to the layout of that Hope Street lot as far as the right-of-way for the YMCA and the parking spots that abut the service net building, and what will have to be maintained and what we can, in essence, eliminate for our space?
Peter, if I understand the tax map, which is all we're really working from at this point, there's 3 levels to that parking area, and we are using the bottom 2 only, which I believe are the cities. And then the top one is the one you're talking about, which are the dedicated spaces for those businesses. We're not touching that area.
Well, they're the dedicated spaces for 13 Prospect, brick building that's up there. And I don't even think we own them.
Okay. And the impact of would we have to take into consideration the access for the Wise rear parking lots? Would we be widening that access to that parking lot?
It's a good question. I can't answer it because I'm ignorant on that particular access and which one we're talking about.
It would be it would be the access on the east side, not the Prospect Street side. So it's kind of shared with the city to get to the parking lots and get in and get out of the parking lots, and the Y, which maintains a parking lot adjacent to the courthouse.
Yeah. I don't know if the facility is going to be a drive-through, and it's probably going to be backing right in off of Prospect, which I know is not the best solution, but it's no different than being in on a city someplace and having to back in with no apron. There'll be an apron, but you're not going to, the tower will not be able to make a full swing. I don't know if that answers your question, Pete. My point is that I don't think that other side of the parking lot's going to come into play other than personal vehicles.
Okay. I wasn't sure based on the drawings we looked at last week and what we thought was going to fit on that lot. So I just didn't know if you had further ideas on.
The ladder truck had a very tough time making that turn on that side of the parking lot.
Yeah, Pete, one of the things we still need to look at is, is it cost effective and feasible to have a drive-through for just the ladder truck only? And if we do that, does that create any issues with any other kind of parking or return situation? We haven't gotten that far yet. We still need to do a little research.
We do know that the tower is going to have to be up on the upper parking lot. It is too tight of a turn to go up to the lower parking lot and make that quick U-turn, if you will, to go down Hope Street.
Correct.
Okay, and have we taken a look at the impact on the traffic on Prospect Street as far as going east and west, going and returning?
Having served on the parking commission, the people on Prospect Street are going to be very upset over this whole thing. And there has to be thought given to how to keep all of the random traffic from parking on Prospect Street. We have to find a way to encourage the people to go into the parking garage. But that was our biggest problem when the parking garage was being built, was the people that parked on Prospect Street.
Yeah, and as far as the response model goes, I don't really see us going that location unless we're going to that neighborhood. I think everything that we would respond to, I think, would appropriately be responding off of Hope Street.
I'm not talking about the fire trucks. I'm talking about it's got to be neighborhood parking versus those coming into the courthouse, et cetera, parking there. And
it is neighborhood parking currently, with the opportunity for as anybody else to park at certain times. And as we are discussing how to handle Hope Street parking lots, the two that were in question, we are also talking about how to handle those permits to people who live on Prospect Street within that. It's a block is all it is, really. But you're right, getting people to understand that they need to be parking at the parking garage will be a bit of a PR challenge, but I think it's one we can meet.
And Gina, I was referring to I was trying to answer Peter's question about the response, about us responding up Prospect Street. Did I answer your question, Peter? Thank you.
Yes.
I've got a question.
Go ahead.
Do we know what the occupancy rate on the parking garage is on an average day?
Ooh, the person that's on vacation.
Okay.
I can only maintain so much in my brain.
I understand that how important it is to be good to our neighbors, but also kind of being a non-political entity. I'm also curious as to how important that becomes when you're talking about a way to save the town an extremely large amount of money on a temporary basis. You would expect people to understand that they have to make some sacrifices. And if sacrificing, you have to park in the garage, I feel your pain, however.
Yeah, we have parking to spare in the garage. That much I can tell you. And as Jen mentioned, everybody in the neighborhood survived fairly well with, and she knows because she lives there, fairly well with the with what happened built while the courthouse was being built, which was, if you'll think about it, roughly 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
and without the parking garage. And so, I mean, there was
Without the parking
there
garage,
wasn't
right?
an alternative at that time. Now there is. So this is a question more of habits
Yeah.
and not availability of parking. So.
The drawing, I'm going to ask a question. The drawing that was presented to us last week, is that the conceptual design drawing for the temporary? I mean, is that the official, or will there be another design drawing? I mean, is that the layout that is going to fit on this location is what I'm asking.
David, that was only done for us to prove to ourselves that that location was even workable. That is far from an actual layout or any kind of drawing other than just, hey, here's the sizes of trailers and of an insulated garage. Can we make it fit, and can Chief get his vehicles in and out of it? That's all it was.
Okay. All right. Gotcha.
Hey, Chief,
Yes.
what consideration for space was given on that sizing that was given to Dennis as far as moving to temporary? Is that fitting all the apparatus we currently have on the floor?
Into two separate structures. I don't know about the smaller vehicles, the pickup, and we'll have to confirm that, but the two structures, is my understanding, is big enough to fit the major apparatus that we have.
Is there any other questions about the Hope Street location that the members want to ask or discuss? Okay. As Jean mentioned, does somebody want to make a motion for a recommendation for Hope Street? Or do we want to further discuss?
I'll make the motion. I make a motion that we present Hope Street as as the choice for the temporary location for the fire department.
Second.
Okay, is any discussion on that? Okay, do we want to take a vote, a roll call vote?
Yes.
Okay. I'll just call out names and you can wave. I think everybody's on, or say yes. I sometimes have problems with this technology, on these calls, but I'll go through it. Peter, you on with us today?
Yeah, I don't believe I get a vote, but I'll vote yes.
Okay. Bob,
Yes.
Keith, Jen,
Yes.
Jean.
Yes.
Okay, and Herb, Herb.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I'm voting a yes. So we have a complete yes to make a positive recommendation to Hope Street to the building committee, fire station building committee for the Hope Street lot. Thank you, folks, for that discussion. All right, the only thing that I had left that I wanted to talk about is I wanted to talk about setting some recurring meetings for the temporary group. Thinking about maybe picking the same day of the week, the same time. And I was thinking about every 2 weeks, like the building committee. I think we do have to, meet quite often. So I think it would be important, especially with the challenges with WebEx and all the meetings that the town has. So I do want to discuss options about setting a regular meeting, if we could. I know we're running out of time here and we have to get off by 5:30. I wanted to discuss if everybody, I looked at the dates in the long-term calendar, And I would like to do the meeting around 4 o'clock if possible on a day during the week. Mondays seem to work. I know it's the beginning of the week, but I'd like to open up the discussion on what the other members' opinions are about the date and the time.
Mondays work for me at 4 o'clock.
I agree.
Same.
Sure, why not?
I don't even want to look at your calendar, Mayor, but sure.
Well, I may not be at every one of them.
Yeah, okay. I don't think we need to take a vote for this, right? I think we're just having a discussion. Does anybody else have an opinion about Mondays at 4 o'clock? I'd like to keep it. Does it make sense to keep it on the same week that the building committee meeting is? That's going to be on Thursdays, right?
I think it helps, because there may be information that, late breaking information that you would be able to share at the meeting.
I missed the first part of that. Is that a good idea to have it on the same week?
From my perspective, it is.
Okay.
To do it on the same 2 weeks during the month that the building committee is meeting on Thursdays.
Okay.
Dave,
go ahead.
Dave, I just want to advise, I do have a standing building committee meeting that meets somewhat irregularly at this time, Monday afternoons at 4:30. So I'm going to try to do my best to balance, get them on one week and get you on the next moving forward. So if we can just get some flexibility on that, that'd be great.
Sure. Absolutely. So why don't, for now, we say it's, things happen, but why don't we say it's the same weeks as the building committee on the Monday at 4 p.m.
So our first meeting, our next meeting would be on the 21st.
It would. Our next meeting as a full committee is the 24th.
24th.
Right. Or do we need to have another meeting before the 24th, since we've covered everything, I think? Just asking.
I can only imagine that it would be if Neil and/or Dennis had additional information that was important that we felt like you needed to know.
So we should tentatively write down the 21st and then
24th, Jean.
No, she's saying the temporary building committee would be the 21st.
Yes. I'm sorry, the 21st, the same week as the fire. I apologize.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So I know it's only a week and a half between now and the 21st, but would it be possible for this committee to have greater discussion on site layout and more discussion so that we have more to bring to the full committee on the 24th? Would that make sense?
I missed half of what you said. I'm sorry.
Dave, can I just offer an opinion? I don't think that we should get too far in the event that the full building committee takes objection to the recommendation. I think that's probably not likely, but just an opinion, cautious opinion, I think.
I kind of agree with that. I think that, we need to bring the recommendation to the full committee, and then the plan, a conceptual design needs to be developed before we could really get into the nitty gritty. So I'm not too sure, without bringing it to them, the full committee, and then getting the okay to work on a conceptual design, I'm not too sure what we're going to be able to talk about.
Yeah, I would agree. The conceptual design, Peter, that this committee will certainly have plenty of input and opportunity to discuss whatever Dennis and Neil bring forward. So,
I think the next. Go ahead, Mayor. I'm sorry.
I just said I think that they would be seeking some kind of information from the chief and certainly from you as a firefighter and Herb and others who are on this committee as part of putting together their preliminary design for the temporary.
I think the next step in my mind would be some organizational meetings with the chief and his staff. The programming effort that I spoke of earlier. Once the programming is done, myself and Dennis and Katrina can sit down and start to develop some conceptual floor plans of what might be, what the trailers may look like, what the apparatus bays may look like, egress into the site, egress out of the site, and sort of take that next step in terms of fleshing out the design.
Could I ask, what are you talking about as programming? I'm missing what the content of that might be.
For example, Mayor, we need to know how many bedrooms, how many sleeping accommodations there need to be, what kind of office space there needs to be, what the public interaction is going to be at these trailers, what the storage requirements are going to be at this particular location. I think those are all pretty high level questions that we're going to have to drill down to make sure that we're putting it in the fight.
Okay. Well, that would be somewhat site dependent for sure.
So I'm glad we answered all that. And I guess just to further clarify my question, I wasn't trying to nail down anything or say that I feel that we're being excluded at all. But I just wanted to make sure that whatever this committee could do in a timely fashion so that the temporary location isn't further holding up the project, if that made sense.
Yeah,
If there was any meaningful progress we could make between now and the 24th, if there was things we were in need of checking off, we could handle that.
yeah, so
We could just move forward.
I think what you could do to help our team, the design team, is a lot of the things that you brought up today. For example, private parking, maybe some objections from neighbors, and things that we can do during that design to avoid those problems. If you could get us just a simple list of what you as a committee feel, what are those important site factors? What do you need as a city for us to look at that's not going to come out of the programming, for example, and give that to us? That would be a great help.
That sounds like a good topic for a meeting then in 2 weeks. And because I would want Carol, I would hope Carol Collins be there for that as well. And I think, it won't be exhaustive, but I would also like to give the mayor some time to, reflect on that, because that's probably going to be the most informative for a discussion.
Yeah, and I think the city engineer and Marla will be brought into the conversation as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely, Chief. Find out what utilities are available, where they are. There's all sorts of things that we're going to need to understand that maybe the committee can start poking into. That would be great.
And I think Marla has already done some of that preliminary work.
Yeah,
I guess my question to everyone is, at one point, this is a public meeting, and it's really important that that we keep the public advised of what's going on. At what point should we start the process of, especially the neighborhood, doing some public outreach? Obviously we're going to have a public meeting at some point so that the neighbors would have comment and whatnot. But I know when we were looking at the Riddell Street property, we went and visited some of the neighbors and heard some of the concerns. At what point should we start rolling that process?
That's a good thing. I'm sorry. Go ahead, David.
Go ahead, Mayor. Go ahead.
I was going to say that's a good thing to be thinking about. We know why we're here today, because we are in front of the city council on Thursday, and we wanted to at least have an opportunity to solidify the Hope Street, at least the recommendation from this committee to the Hope that it be Hope Street parking lots to give to them. So I think we would want to start that effort as soon as possible, Chief, but certainly not between now and this evening. Or even possibly by the 24th. But I think we'd be willing to do that.
And I think those meetings, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the public portion of the meeting should be the main building committee meeting and not the subcommittee meeting.
What do you know?
It can be the subcommittee meeting, I guess, but I mean.
Well, I don't know how it normally is done with projects, but this specifically is this particular property affecting this particular neighborhood. And I just, I know we would do it, but I just want to make sure that we afford the opportunity for people to have comment.
I mean, you are members of the full committee. You are not ad hoc. You are members of the full committee. So you can certainly keep reporting to the main committee. In fact, that'll probably be required.
Of course.
So would we then sort of assume that our meeting on October 5th would be that public hearing in a sense, or would be that invitation to the public?
I think that would be safe to assume. I'd like to not commit to that tonight, but I think it would be safe to consume. My experience has been we send out, letters and surveys and ask for comment, and they don't always come in. But I think this will probably start coming in tomorrow.
Man, I have absolutely no experience with it. So I'm just asking the questions.
Yeah.
Well, I think we can further the discussion also on the 21st. But I think it would be a good idea to set the dates and have them continue our meetings so we get in a roll.
Yeah.
So we'll say our next meeting is the 21st at 4 p.m.
Okay. And
is there anything else that anybody wants to talk about or bring up before we ask for a motion to adjourn? I want to thank everybody for their time and the chief for all his input to educate us. Thank you, Chief.
I hope it's helpful.
Well, we get a little. It's 5:25 and there's another meeting. So folks want to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, folks, for all your time.
Let's hope we all agree.
Thank you.
Agree.